The screw is around here somewhere. I don't know, I got parts everywhere. Welcome back to our Garage Auto Detail. Today, we don't have any car stuff going on. But what we do have, some bike stuff. This is the stuff that was been in the background. I've needed to replace the forks. So, if this isn't your thing, not really into bikes, which if you're here for the detail and the car stuff, you're probably not. But if you're into mountain bike stuff, let's try to walk through this together. Stick with us as we replace the forks on the old mountain bike. We are probably going to have to do this in stages because I just realized I don't have 1/8" spacers for under the stem. So I ordered those up, so we're gonna at least try to get the bushings in today. I'll show you what was in there, and I'll show you what the problem was, and I'll show you what the solution is. Okay, so I hope you guys stuck around. I know that's not car detailing, or we're not putting on performance parts, we're not testing those parts, but what we got is we've got a Cannondale 29er. And it came with a Deuce RST air fork. It's the 80mm. The issue with this thing, and I took it apart, drained the life out of it. Unfortunately, I did that on the floor of our garage. So, anyway, the issue was this thing was sucked down. It does have some movement, but anyway, we're just replacing it. But here's the issue. Right? See it? See it? Oh, sorry. The issue is 1.5" diameter straight steer tube. They don't really do that anymore. They do like a tapered steer, right? So it's like 1.5" at the bottom, 1.8" at the top. If you're familiar with mountain bikes at all, you know what I'm talking about. So I took the head tube and I knocked out the 1.5" bushings. So I tried to get some other bike companies online, trying to I talked to some and they didn't have any good solutions. Talked to REI, they didn't want to help me. They said they couldn't tell me any information without seeing the bike. I just wanted to know if there was a solution to take an 1.5" head tube and neck it, and put some bushings in there to fit your 1.8" steer tube. So, did a bunch of research, bought a pair of calipers, doing some ID and OD measurements, and finally knocked out the bushings that were in the head tube. Here's the lower, here's the upper. So, we got some parts that are gonna help us here. And I'll link everything that I had, everything that I used in the description below, because I was finding that it was difficult to find information on it, on taking the 1.5" head tube and then finding a fork and whatever. So we used a little Cane Creek Zero Stack. This is the 49. The bushings are actually in the freezer because we're gonna tap those in today. All right. So, getting some gloves on. That's the head tube for the Cannondale. It's not tapered, it's straight. It's 1.5 inches or about 49.8 millimeters ID. And the bushings that go in there are about 49 millimeters OD. So it's technically an interference fit, right? Correction, y'all. The ID of the head tube is 49 millimeters, so about 1.92 inches. Let's see what we got. So here's the fork that we're working with today. As you can see, much smaller diameter. I've got, so I installed the crown race, tapped that into place, and the bearing is just kind of there. But anyway, yeah, so straight steer, 1/8 inch. Obviously, it's gonna have, it's gonna be different, right? So we got a tube cutter for, well, cutting the tube, right? Because this comes in longer than, say, this guy. And so we, once we kind of get it semi-assembled, we're gonna measure it out and we're gonna cut it below the top edge, just so that it, once the star nut's in there, it draws it up into the head tube. Speaking of star nut, here is the star nut installer. This is for a 1 to 1 1/8 inch steer tube. Here's the installation instructions for the ZS, right, which is the 0 stack. 49.61 millimeters, which it basically is. It's a 0 stack. So we're changing the configuration of the bike just a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. There's like an external cup, EC, I think that's what it stands for. Anyway, here's the top part. Actually came with a star nut, but I needed an installer anyway. And then this is the top cap, right? Some grease to assemble it all. And I have them, since they're interference, I have them freezing. I don't typically have a itty bitty refrigerator in my garage. Okay, well, since I don't have the right holding apparatus, we're kind of making a little something to keep the head tube, the bottom flange, like as level as possible so that we can go ahead and tap this in. I have a wooden block and a hammer. We're gonna grease up the bushing, we're gonna knock it in, we're going to see what happens. Again, there's probably more people that know what they're doing, but we're just really going to do our best. Fairly level fairly level there. Gonna get it greased up. Apply just a little bit of grease. Like tools to install these things, but you know, I'm gonna do what we can. I hope it's the right one. So when I ordered them, I knew what the inside diameter of the head tube was, so I knew what the outside diameter of the, I guess, head tube bushings needed to be. So that's where I came up with these ones. Now let's figure out how to get the other side in. So the lower bushing went in. We were able to get that to seat. We're gonna do the upper bushing now, the upper part of the head tube. I obviously don't have the right tools, so I'm kind of trying to give it a shot. So we'll set you up and we'll just see if we can get it in. It's not perfectly level, but it's what we're gonna have to use. So I got my bushing. Smearing my grease around. I don't know if this helps at all, but like, I don't know if it makes it thicker. It's an issue with it being cold, but let's give it a shot. The problem with caulking a bushing when you put it in is there's a pretty good chance you might end up rolling the lip as it goes in. Oh no! That sounded like that's seated. All right, let's get some taps around. Seated. Okay, well, it looks pretty good in there. All right, little IPA on a rag here. The same with the underside. All right, let's see how this baby goes in there. See what happens. And then boy, I'm gonna end up having to hack a bunch of it off. Buddy, it's kind of sweet. Okay guys, I got it to the point where I can stop until I get the spacers because I forgot to order those. But fingers crossed, it kind of feels like the bushings worked. So I don't want to jinx myself just yet. The second part, we'll finish the assembly. We'll cut the steerer tube to length and we'll get it all ready to go. Hey guys, welcome back. Many days later. We got the spacers. We got the last few things that we needed. So, okay, here we go. There's some spacers, some carbon fiber spacers. I don't want to go too crazy. This is where we are. Again, it's a couple days later. Next step, we're going to mark the stem. Then we're going to take it out, get our pipe cutter, cut the stem to length, grease everything back up, and try to get her installed. So I'm just going to come with a fine point Sharpie and just hope it makes a line. Yeah, it looks like it is. Take everything back apart, but I'm gonna take that line and I'm gonna move down about 1/4 of an inch, cut it, and then reassemble everything. So let's take everything off. Here we go. Here is the line. If you guys can see that. Tube cutter, links in the description below. So there's the line, and then the single point of contact is the blade. And these are your support wheels. You can see about 1/4 of an inch. So you tighten, spin, tighten, spin. You just go around a couple of times. One of the reasons I put 2 spacers there was because this is my first time, so if I mess up this cut, we can change out the spacers a little bit, and you know, it'll just kind of help. It's working. Oh, my hands are so greasy now. We're starting to see a witness line. Now you can see it. So, oops, means we're getting close, getting very close. If anyone knows what this part of this tool is for, comment below, because I have no idea. This is like my first kind of foray into repairing bikes. Oh, there we go. You know, other than basic, put the chain back on for the kids and stuff like that. I'm gonna take this bearing off while I deburr this thing. You're just gonna knock that high spot off. The other benefit of deburring is it all goes together correctly, and your chances of cutting yourself a lot less likely. Now that it's all deburred, like it has an edge, but it's not a sharp edge. It just probably comes to a nice little 90. I'm gonna wipe this down a little bit. As you can see, there's some metal shavings. Wipe it down. Right, we don't need any of those shavings getting in anything. Wipe down our stanchions, seals. Wipe down this guy. Here's our grease again, HPG1, I don't know, high performance grease, the HPG1. So, get some grease on this bottom race. This is the crown race, they call it. Learn the terminology, and I literally had no idea what I was doing. Well, I still don't. This is like, plus, you know, it's a nice bike. It just needed the fork repaired. Like, we just, instead of repairing it, because that was a little hard to figure out. Instead of just repairing it, I'm like, I'm just gonna replace it. You out of the way for a second. Whoa. So we're just, oh my gosh, we're just gonna make a huge mess apparently. You stay over here, spacers. And then now, oh, you know what? We are not ready for handlebars. Why, kids? Star nut. Check out the length. I guess I don't know the proper way to put in a star nut. Here's the star nut installer. It goes like this. It's in. Again, I don't know if it's any good. All right, that looks like there's gonna be several threads engaged. So for this one, we're gonna do German torque. Good and tight. Yeah, good and tight. All right, let's get this assembled the rest of the way. I did also shorten the stem. I got a different stem. Now, let's really hope I didn't accidentally hit the front brake when I've been moving everything around. Here, right, so. Lose a finger. This is not so balanced. Just adjusting the handlebars now. I put a little bit of weight on them and boop, they spun. So it didn't actually make that noise. Boop. Well, she moves again. She bangs. Adjustable. Well, it's an Amazon fork. It's what I use to fix my bike. We'll pound this thing around once I put some pedals on it, and we'll see how she does. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's installment of what we're doing in our garage. Again, there was no detailed stuff, but we were in here, did some work, much needed work. This thing's been down for weeks. Looks pretty good over there. You can thank the Prophet for holding it up. Hope Brian's not watching this. Okay, guys. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Oh, I hit myself in the nuts. Okay.